Hey guys, welcome to this episode of the Rip Griffin Show. This is an exciting episode because we have East Coast that meets South Coast that meets West Coast. That's right. So I'm joined tonight by Stephen Leonardi from the Major League Baseball Fan Association, and also Alex Naveja from the host of the Sideline Sports Podcast, covering everything in SoCal sports. Guys, how are you doing tonight? Welcome to the show.
Go ahead, Stephen. You can take the mic first.
Definitely very excited to be back. Just always a blast to be on this podcast. Always a blast to be talking some baseball.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys coming back on. This has been something I've been wanting to do for a while. Just throw out some baseball, talk some baseball, just go back and forth, just have a conversation. And, I can throw out the notes right now. We can just go impromptu, just let it go.
Definitely. Let's have some fun.
So, but unfortunately there is a somber note that we have to talk about first, which is the passing of New York Met great Tom Seaver at 75. He passed away today.
Yeah. So Tom, Tommy, terrific. One of my absolute all-time, favorite players. I've always considered myself to be a historian of the game, but if you go look up the top Baseball Reference WAR for pitchers, Tom Seaver is 6th, and the 5 guys in front of him, 4 of them have pictures in black and white, and one is Roger Clemens, who has, unfortunately, some very heavy ties to steroids. So really, when you look at Tom Seaver, just one of the best all time to do it, and sending some prayers and good thoughts to his friends and family.
Absolutely.
That's a huge loss to the baseball community. I mean, this is a huge arm that Major League Baseball is losing, and it's really unfortunate. We were even talking about it in the MLBFA group chat, Steven, and a lot of us would say, hey, how many pitchers use the number 21? I'm looking at it right now. Walker Buehler uses the number 21. So that just goes to show you how many players use 21. I wasn't a pitcher, but I was a baseball player, and 21 was one of my favorite numbers. And Tom Seaver is a player that is well known across the league and forever will be known across the league. And rest in peace to him. And just thoughts and prayers going over to the Seaver family.
Absolutely, such a great pitcher for the New York Mets. One that won the World Series for them. So. He's a legend, and he definitely will be missed. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
So, Alex, I want to start with you real quick because the trade deadline that we just had was probably one that was more active than we thought, especially by a couple of teams, primarily the San Diego Padres. Now, you cover these guys. You know what all is going on. What is your overall opinion? Do you think that they are primed to make a deep push into October?
I'm all in on the Padres right now. I mean, I really think that the NLCS could be Dodgers and Padres. It could be that matchup there. It'll be, hey, you know what? Best club is going to the World Series. And I actually really taking a step back. And after the last episode that I did this week, I took a step back and I really thought about it. The Padres still maintained their top 10 farm system, their top 10 prospects. And if you really think about it, yes, they gave away a lot of great talent, a lot of great pieces to future stars that are to come for the San Diego Padres, but they made heck of a moves. It was just ridiculous receiving Mike Clevenger, Mitch Moreland, Trevor Rosenthal to replace Kirby Yates right now that he's injured in the moment. But these are great, solid moves that the Padres are making. And I'm just saying, if you're a Padres fan or a Dodgers fan and you see these two clubs they're going to play and they're going to play a series, you might want to drop what you're doing just to watch what the Padres have going on. This is exciting baseball, folks. SoCal sports, that's where it's at right now. SoCal baseball.
Man, I'm about to jump on the Padre train after that.
You might have to.
I'm going to go on the record. I'll go on the record. I'm going to be the first person to start pumping the brakes. I love this Padres team. I do not like the manager. I don't think Jace Tingler's the guy to get them over the top. I think in the postseason, you're going to see a lot of inexperience, a lot of youth. I like the Padres in the long term, but not this year.
Ooh. Okay. Well,
I do like that answer, Steven. I do think the experience does go a long way. I mean, if you look at the experience aspect, there's only really three guys that have that experience. You look at Rosenthal, Clevenger, and Machado. You
They got
see,
Hosmer.
and of course,
Yeah.
I forgot about Eric Hosmer too. Hosmer was with that World Series run against the Mets, and then of course Machado with the Dodgers, and then you had Clevenger with the Indians in 2016, and you have that. I completely forgot somebody else, but
Moreland.
yeah,
What about Mitch Moreland?
Mitch Moreland, of course, that's the Boston Red Sox being with them in 2018 and beating the Dodgers in the World Series also. So they do have some veteran presence. They do have that playoff experience, but I still don't see them really getting over it. I still see the Dodgers being that team that's going to get over to the World Series is because this Dodger team is in another level.
It is.
Yeah, and I mean that team out in LA. I mean, you just look at. I mean, their last 10, they're what, 8-2. This team's
That's true.
unstoppable right now, and now they're getting Walker Buehler back. So not only were they the best team in baseball, but they're bringing in one of the best young arms in the game.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's super exciting just to even to see the Dodgers be leading in ERA with their bullpen and all. That's a great stat because I'm a firm believer that bullpen wins you games, especially the last two times that the Dodgers were in the World Series in 2017 and 2018. The bullpen was just on their A game, and I really think this is a really good Dodgers team. Now it's okay. It's a balance of good bats and good pitching. So I think this will be an interesting year for them for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I'm looking at the run differential right now, plus 93.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah,
That sounds about right.
It's, I mean, at some point, like you're looking at this team and it's like video game numbers. And I mean, the fact that, my favorite pitcher out for the Dodgers is Dustin May. The fact that this is just another 23-year-old, 6'6", blows it past you, has amazing off-speed stuff. I mean, this is a team they're built to win now. They're built to win tomorrow. They're built to win 10 years from now. That's a scary lineup.
Oh,
absolutely. Here's the thing, guys. If you really think about it, when I saw that move after the trade deadline for the Toronto Blue Jays and with the Dodgers, when they made that move to move Ross Stripling, at first I didn't like it because I do like Ross Stripling. I do like that nasty curveball. It's 12-6. It's like a right-handed Clayton Kershaw. But then when you really take a step back, you see the three guys that have a starting rotation spot in Urias, May, and Gonsolin. And those are three very filthy guys that will be the future of that Dodgers rotation. And that's going to be a rotation that's just going to be so stable. It's going to be so disgusting for the next couple of years. And it's going to stay real good. It's going to stay real stable. I can't wait to see the future prospect in Mitch White to try to make his way onto the rotation as well. So excited. Can't wait to see. Dodgers have always done a good job when it comes to pitching.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be one of those things that we're going to see when October comes around, that the Dodgers are going to they're primed right now to win the World Series. I think it's going to be this stretch coming down here in September, because this is what September is all about. This is, you put all your cards on the table, and October is the goal, and the Dodgers are primed. I kind of was hoping that they might have done a little bit more in the way of the trade deadline, maybe getting a couple more pieces, but they feel that, they have the lineup, especially with Mookie Betts in there, that they will be able to, get over that hurdle and win the World Series, in October.
And that's why the Dodgers really wanted to make that move for Mookie Betts, because they needed that additional stick, because there were times where the Dodgers had runners on base, runners in scoring position, and they just couldn't even drive them in, or even just to create run opportunities. Mookie Betts is just that guy that will be an on-base machine or even a hit machine. This is a guy that averages high 200s, even 300s. This is a guy that can get you on base, can get you on the board with one swing of the bat, can steal a couple bases, has a great arm, has a great glove. You guys have seen him with the Boston Red Sox, and now that he's a Dodger and will be a lifetime Dodger, this guy is going to do some dangerous things for the Dodgers, but it can't just be Mookie Betts doing it. They've also been getting help with Corey Seager. It looks like Max Muncy's starting to heat up, and it looks like Cody Bellinger also starting to heat up with that stick as well. Another underrated Dodger too is AJ Pollock, who has really been swinging a hot bat lately. And against his former team right now, against the Arizona Diamondbacks, yeah, that guy, he's just full send. I'm ready to go completely against my team, backstab my team. But I'm here to win, boys. Here to win.
Well, and Alex, you touched on a great point. Last 10 games, Cody Bellinger he's batting .350, 5 home runs. Now, I know the beginning of the season was just absolutely atrocious. Really took him a long time to get going. But you're looking at a lineup with Cody Bellinger and Mookie Betts. Nobody's topping that in October.
No. I think it's a lineup that it's scary 1 through 9. It really is. And I think the Dodgers have positioned themselves finally to hopefully they'll get over that hurdle come October.
I do have to say, though, last year, I believe it was last year or 2 years ago, the Dodgers did play against the Yankees. And when they played against the Yankees had their way with the Dodgers. So I do think if the Yankees do get healthy in the right time before going into October baseball, and let's say the Yankees do go to the October Classic, and it's Dodgers and Yankees, I think that would be a matchup that I would be afraid of. But right now, just looking at it, I'm not too afraid of the Yankees, not having any of your big bats, not having the pitching that they have or anything. But I don't know. It'll be really interesting to see what the second half of the season is to come.
Well, there is without a doubt in my mind that the New York Yankees, and I'm a Yankee fan, but the New York Yankees are the biggest winners in the fact that there's expanded playoffs this year. This is not a good Yankees team. You know, every bat is basically either hurt, just getting back from being hurt, or about to be hurt. All of a sudden, like, you really start looking at it's like, God, this team's not good. Like, can they make it to the playoffs? And then you remember that they're in the American League, and there's not 8 good teams. There's not 8 better teams in the American League to keep them out. So, you know, I think we'll have a little bit of a perfect storm where the Yankees are going to kind of sneak into the playoffs 5 through 8 seed, but get everybody healthy right in time for October. And we'll see them go on a run. Now, I don't know if they have the pitching to kind of get all of the way there. I mean, really, after Cole, who's been struggling, a lot of question marks. But, you know, this is lineup-wise, I mean, they can go toe-to-toe with anybody.
Absolutely. So, Steven, let me ask you this, because since you brought up the Yankees, do you think that Garrett Cole is having his struggles because of the pressure to win in New York?
To be honest, I don't think so. You know, his last 2 starts were obviously not great. He's been, he's been the victim of the long ball this year. But, you know, historically, if you look at his career, this isn't anything that's that weird. And if you take it in the course of a 162 game season, it's a pitcher that had 2 bad starts. It happens. Now, unfortunately, because of how bad the Yankees have been, and just being the Yankees as a team, everything's going to be magnified. But, you know, at this point, I have so many worries about the Yankees. Garrett Cole's not one of them.
So do you think what do you think the timeline is for? Now, I know Aaron Judge is banged up. I know Giancarlo Stanton is hurt. The rotation, the bullpen, everything. Do you see this team possibly getting through the first round or 2 into the ALCS?
You know, I did. You know, at this point, it's definitely, I think 50-50 could really go either way. You know, they don't have the pitching to really compete with, like, even a Cleveland. We're seeing them struggle against Tampa Bay this year. But, you know, if they get lucky, let's say they get Minnesota in the first round. Yankees always play Minnesota well. A team like Chicago, really good young team, but also some question marks in their rotation. Yeah, you know, I think the Yankees do have the pieces that can go on a run. It's just going to be about getting healthy.
Absolutely. You know, the White Sox, they're a team right now that is in the process of making a run right now. I mean, they're sitting in second place right now at 22-14, but they're right behind Cleveland, but they have a run differential of plus 44.
Absolutely. So, I fully believe the White Sox are the team to beat in that division. I think it's a young team. It's a hungry team. I have a couple question marks, as I mentioned earlier, just kind of around their rotation. But, I think in the long run, they're going to be the team to beat. I love Cleveland's pitching. I don't know if they have the offense to kind of go into a late run into October. But, right now, I think AL Central, it's going to be Chi-Town.
I really still like the Minnesota Twins. I mean, I still think that's a team that has not even been mentioned. I don't even remember the last time someone even mentioned the Twins. I think those guys are a sleeper team. And when you think about this team, they didn't make a move in the trade deadline. So that brings a huge concerning point. The White Sox didn't even make a move. And you saw Cleveland really go up as far as the farm system is concerned, but it still brings up a big question mark in both of these teams. Like, why didn't they make a move? I mean, there were even rumors that even the White Sox were interested in Lance Lynn. That could have been a real big storyline over there in Chicago. But I still think the Twins still have what it takes to be able to surpass the White Sox or even surpass Cleveland. I mean, even though Cleveland had to trade away one of their aces, I still see the Twins in the top of that division.
Yeah, no, that Minnesota team is a strong team. I think the last time I was on this podcast, they were kind of my sneaky pick. And it seems like whoever I pick then all of a sudden starts losing games. So we'll have to see. We'll have to monitor.
You're not the only one choosing them.
But yeah, so we'll have to look, because I know the podcast before that it was, it's all all Yankees, and then the wheels fell off there. So I apologize if I pick your favorite team and they start losing. That's 100% on me, and I didn't mean it. But no, I mean, Minnesota's a good team. I think they're very much coming across as a veteran team that knows, hey, like, we're going to put ourselves in a good position to be in the postseason, and then we're going to go to that next level.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how the Twins continue to proceed, especially with there's 25 games left in the season. How they're able to continue to push, and hopefully they can, I think they're sitting in third place right now with the White Sox in second, and the Indians are actually leading the division. But the Twins are only a game and a half out of first, sitting at 21-16, so it can be done. And I think the White Sox were kind of a sleeper team for me as well. I think they'll push through. They might be able to be a wild card. So I think they'll make the postseason. Honestly, I think they will. It's just Cleveland and Chicago are going to go back and forth. That's for sure.
Definitely think so. I actually wanted to bring up a point, and let me see what Steven thinks. What are you thinking about the Toronto Blue Jays right now? I'm liking what they're doing over there in the AL East. I think they have what it takes to pass up the Yankees, maybe, no?
Oh, absolutely. So the Toronto Blue Jays. So for those listening, so I used to live up in Toronto, so I've always had a soft spot for the Blue Jays. Even though they're in Buffalo now, but that's a different story.
It's temporary.
A temporary trip south of the border. But no, so the Toronto Blue Jays are a team that smells blood in the water. They know they've got the young talent. Vlad Guerrero Jr., Bichette just went on the IL, but they replaced him at shortstop. This is a team that just 100% knows, hey, like, this is our opportunity. And I think just like the Padres, this is a team that's saying, like, hey, let's go all in. Let's go see if we can win a championship. Or, we saw Toronto and Texas, in the beginning of the 2010s. We saw just how packed the Rogers Center was. Canada loves baseball when there's a good team there. They know, looking at 2021, let's get some butts in the seats, and, let's put on a show.
Absolutely.
Let's see if there's going to be anybody hitting a home run and doing a bat flip just like Joey Bats did that one time. One of my favorite baseball players. Like, I actually have a signed baseball by Joey Bats. So when he did that, I lost my mind just because I love Joey Bats. I love how he hits and everything. And being a former outfielder myself, I just love his stick. I love the way he hits and all. But I actually do like what the Blue Jays did. And when you look at the starting rotation, it actually looks a little nasty too. Having two former Dodgers and Hyun-Jin Ryu, and now Ross Stripling being a part of it. You have Tanner Roark, you have Anderson a part of that rotation now. It looks pretty nasty right now. That we just have to wait and see how Stripling does in his new division, new league. So I'm just curious to see how Stripling's going to do in his new team, his new uniform. But he'll see his old teammate again in Hyun-Jin Ryu. So it's like a little Dodger reunion.
So what about the acquisition of Robbie Ray too?
That's going to be that's a huge piece for that Toronto team. When you start thinking, okay, like first round of the playoffs, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's just a best out of 3 series, first round. All of a sudden, you've got good pitching in Toronto. This is a team that, you were kind of looking there saying like, after Ryu, who's number 2, who's number 3, who's going to be the first guy out of the bullpen. Now those names are starting to be filled in. This is a team that knows, hey, given the right opportunity, we can go on a run. And, I kind of keep thinking, they'll be in a position where they're going to get all of this kind of young, all this young talent, just postseason experience. And this is going to be a team that's going to be competitive for the next decade.
Absolutely. Now let's go ahead and stay in the American League East and talk about the Tampa Bay Rays. This is a scary good team.
Yeah, that's, to me, when you're looking in the American League, absolutely team to beat. Based off of record, it's going to come down to them and the A's. But, you look at what Tampa's doing. They're killing the Yankees again, 5-1 last time I checked tonight. This is a team that they're willing to go, toe-to-toe with any other team. They're young. They're angry. It's almost like the punk rock movement. They want to show everybody else that, like, hey, like, you know what? We're the team to beat. We're we're that Cinderella that's not only going to win, but, we're going to beat you up while we do it. If they weren't in the AL East, I'd have a lot more fun watching them right now.
That rotation is seriously scary. It's leaving players with nightmares right now with having Glass now, you have Snell, and you have Charlie Morton. Oh, man, just thinking about that is already giving me nightmares. I'm definitely going to not be able to go to sleep tonight. And if it's giving me nightmares, just imagine what Steven up there is thinking right now. He's a Yankee fan, and he's probably scared right now. Maybe he's going to be scared of taking a high and inside fastball, just like what happened yesterday with that whole entire scandal. That was interesting stuff right there. I always love little division rivalries.
Well, and that's what makes sports so much fun. So, you look at Kevin Cash, which a little fun fact, Kevin Cash actually used to play on the Yankees. He might have been part of that 2009 World Series team. But, he's going to get, a lot of attention for Manager of the Year. And it's just so different. I remember growing up and back when they were still the Devil Rays, and they were just, the absolute joke of baseball. Every year it was, how many games did they win? And, it seemed like they were closer to 0 than they were 80. And now, ever since that run in 2008, they're just always right there in the mix, kind of going into the last month. And even in their down years, they're just a team that's always retooling. I think they're Moneyball on steroids at this point.
Right.
And it's just, it's a great franchise. And they're, unfortunately, that they play at the Trop, but that's a team that deserves a real stadium.
Oh, absolutely.
And there are even nice little concepts of what the new stadium was supposed to be. And I know I'm not even entirely sure if that's going to happen, but the Rays are a team that always seems to find a way to get the perfect farm system, to get the perfect prospects and just draft really well. And they get some really nice guys for that farm system. And when they come into the major league level, they're ready to play. And these guys are all stars.
Yeah. The Tampa Bay Rays, it's just like you mentioned, Steven, Moneyball on steroids. It's just insane how, when we look at I'm going to go back to 2009 to the ALDS between the Astros and the Rays. The Astros had Verlander, Cole, and Greinke. All 3 pitchers were combined payroll of over $60 million. And then that's the entire payroll of the Tampa Bay Rays at that time. And yet they can compete at such a high dominant level. And it's just it's just crazy. It makes you think, what are these other teams doing that, should they follow suit and follow what the Rays are doing?
Yeah, I definitely agree. You look around baseball and you see so many teams that kind of just seem to keep making the same mistakes. You're all of a sudden you're going to overpay for one or two guys. You're going to kind of deal everybody at a deadline, and all your young guys to try and get in, like a one okay pitcher. And actually, I see that we got a comment about the Texas Rangers deadline move, so I'll grab that one in a second because I have a lot of opinions on that. But, I look at teams, that really are focusing on building. Remember, this is a Tampa Bay team that in the offseason traded Tommy Pham for, as Blake Snell said, 2 slapdick prospects. This is a team that not only did they say, hey, we're going to compete this year, but we already have the best minors and we're going to add more depth to that. This is a team that, they figured out baseball's algorithm. What they're doing is it's bonkers, for lack of a better term. They understand the game of baseball better than anybody else right now.
Oh, absolutely. So I went and while you were talking, I went to go Google Kevin Cash, and he actually won a World Series back in 2007 with the Boston Red Sox.
Yep. Yeah. I think he was the replacement for Doug Mirabelli. They brought him in when so Mirabelli was Wakefield's catcher because he could catch the knuckleball. Yes. When he left, they brought in Cash as the backup.
Yes, absolutely. So let's go ahead and change gears. We had a comment come in. I'm going to go ahead and put it up here. This is from Austin Hicks. Austin is actually the owner of the Victoria Armadillos semi-professional team, which is here in my hometown. So it's exciting for us to have a semi-pro team. So Austin wrote in, he goes, what do y'all think the Rangers should have done to keep Lance Lynn or Gallo or trade for Younger?
Yeah, so I thought Texas had a very interesting trade deadline. So I like that they decided to keep Gallo. Gallo's having a terrible year. I think he's batting like $175. No point selling low. He's like 26, 27 years old. That's a guy that, like, okay, let's see if we can kind of fix him. Get him some more value before we make a move. But if I am Texas, how in the world did you not get anything back for Lance Lynn? Now, they did well to get something back for a minor. And, I immediately in fantasy went out and picked up minor because I think Oakland's going to do very, very good things for his pitching. But if I'm Texas, I had to have got something back for Lance Lynn. He's been a career, good pitcher that's having a lights out, insane revival right now. But at 33 years old, he's got a shot next year of looking like Mike Minor, where you're going to turn around and not get top prospects back for him. And I've seen like a bunch of different deadline reports, and I don't buy a lot of them. I think it's people hear one little thing and try and make it into a story. But allegedly, Texas was asking for the same kind of return that the Padres sent for Clevenger. And it's like, guy, like the one's 33, the one's 29. The one's, has a track record of being a good baseball player, and the other one's got a track record of being like a top 15 pitcher in the game. That it's like, guys, like, what are we doing? I feel like they're caught in that no man's land of we want to stay competitive, but we also want to rebuild. And usually when teams do that, they actually do neither, and they're just bad for a very long time.
I want to bring back the Dodgers and Rangers trade for Yu Darvish. You guys remember that deal happened around the deadline. So what didn't make sense is when tweets were being released by reporters, they said Lance Lynn is going to stay. And that didn't make any sense. I just thought, wait, what? Why? Why are you guys going to just keep him? So you guys are going to try to make a run for it? So that just didn't make any sense for me. I think while he's hot, trade him. You would have gotten some pretty good top-notch prospects. You had a ton of teams making a run for Lance Lynn. As far as Joey Gallo is concerned, I don't think he was hitting well enough to be able to be a guy to get a lot of pieces back for him. But Joey Gallo, I see him being the face of the Rangers. I think he needs to stick around. He needs to stay. Every team needs a face of the franchise, and I think Gallo will be the guy for the Rangers. But Lance Lynn should be wearing another jersey. I thought the Yankees were going to be a team that were going to come close. Even I thought the Dodgers could have been a team that, because they saw the Padres doing all these moves, I thought they were going to want to retaliate or rebuttal all the moves is, hey, we're going to go for Lance Lynn because the Padres made all these moves and we just want to be in that dominant part. Or even the Chicago White Sox. There are even reports on the Chicago White Sox. Had that happened, White Sox, I would be saying White Sox are taking that Central. But for the most part, Lynn should have been traded. Gallo should stay as a Ranger and be that franchise player.
In 2018, Lance Lynn had a 4.77 ERA. Goes to Texas, 3.67 last year, below 2 this year. Absolutely, really has turned his career around, and all the props to him. That it's not an easy thing to do. But if I'm Texas, I mean, you're sitting there and you're trying to play the lottery of how good is he going to continue to be? And I believe he only has 1 year on his contract after this season. And now you have to start asking yourself, if I'm Texas, do I think I'm going to be competitive next year? Because if not, well, my return was actually going to be greater this year as he still had that extra year of control than if I'm flipping him at the deadline out of 2021. So I look at it as, you're playing with fire. You had a guy at his all-time high and you decided to hold. And that's, to me, it's very risky.
It is.
It looks like you're making the move to contend, and I just don't think the Rangers have what it takes to contend. They're not a winning team now. I still feel like they still need to rebuild, get a couple of guys, and I think the trade would have been a better idea. They're not in contending mode now.
No, absolutely. I was actually thinking that Lynn would garner more interest and actually be traded to the Braves because the Braves need help, especially in the rotation with, Cole Hamels out. Fulton Nevich is out. I mean, Max Fried is kind of, been up and down. He probably would have fit well within that Braves rotation and kind of give them a solid chance to when October comes, because I think the East is kind of one of those divisions that's up in the air right now. Any team can take the East. And the Braves are in first place right now, but I think they needed to solidify their rotation, and they didn't. They weren't able to pull the trigger and get Lance Lynn. He does have a World Series, I believe, back in 2011 with the Cardinals, I think.
Yeah, he might have been there. So that's where he started.
So he's got playoff postseason experience. I'm surprised that the Rangers didn't do what they should have done, which is mind-boggling, but we're not general managers, and I think Daniels is a general manager that's scratching heads right now.
Well, and it's a thing when I look at a GM like John Daniels, this is a guy that has been a GM for a long time. He's one of the longest tenured GMs in baseball. I think his first trade that he ever did was with Alfonso Soriano. That when they decided to get rid of him to Washington, which Soriano is one of my personal favorites, being a second baseman that was a Yankee fan. But it's tough to have the same voice for that long. As a Yankee fan, we've always seen that with Brian Cashman, that it's, at some point, sometimes it's good just to kind of have a shakeup, just to start getting kind of a different voice in there, a little bit of a different direction. That something that worked in let's say 2010, 2011 maybe isn't working now in 2020.
Absolutely. So it'll be interesting to see what the Rangers do. I think they're going to ride out this season with Lynn and Gallo, and 2021 hopefully we'll have 162 games, and we'll see what they do from there.
Absolutely.
So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so that was from Austin Hicks. Austin, thanks for the question, man. Hope you're doing well. So I kind of want to change gears a little bit and kind of talk about now, Alex, you're not going to like this, but I'm an Astros fan.
Oh, well, where do I sign off? Can I sign off somewhere?
So I got you, for a little over 30 minutes right now before you leave. But I'm
kidding. I'm saying.
No, I don't. What I actually want to talk about is the Astros didn't do much in the way of acquisitions. They signed Brooks Raley. That was it, And I'm kind of one of those that I feel that they maybe should have gone out and tried to get a closer, because the bullpen is full of minor leaguers. You've got injuries, just like the Yankees are completely, injury ridden this season. Do you think a closer, they should have gone out and done something this off season? I mean, this trade season. I can't talk now.
That's really interesting. I didn't hear the Astros name tossed at all during this trade deadline. I think maybe 2-3 bullpen acquisitions could have been really nice. I mean, that World Series run for the Astros, the reason why they won it all was because of that bullpen depth. And seriously, bullpen is just as important as your starting rotation. A strong bullpen, if you don't have a strong starting rotation, but you have a strong bullpen, you get your starter through 4 innings of work and you let the rest of it to your bullpen. So that 2017 Astros was a team very good in relievers, and that's actually pretty shocking news to me now, really thinking about it. Astros should have picked up a closer, should have helped out that bullpen, that backside of the pitching. So I think that could have really benefited the Astros, and that could probably be the difference between them finishing in second and first and try to beat out the A's. Because, I mean, the Astros have a lot of hits. I mean, they have a lot of hitters. I mean, it's just Altuve's been a little quiet. I can see it looks like Springer's struggling a little bit. That was a player that I easily thought was top 3 in the game, right behind Mike Trout. But this is an Astros team that has a lot of ability to clinch that division and to be that first place team. But that pitching just needs to improve, especially with the loss of Garrett Cole, and they just need a lot of pitching help.
Yeah, so this deadline to me was the Astros ownership and GM waving the white flag. I think they looked around and said, for whatever reason, we don't feel that 2020 we're going to be a competitive team. Let's just focus on getting our guys healthy. Let's get through the year. We'll kind of reevaluate in the off season. I'm very intrigued to see kind of what decisions they go. I think maybe we'll see George Springer kind of go on the move here at some point. I think Correa is going to be a long-term key there, but Altuve's looking older. Who knows if Verlander comes back and what he'll be if he does. I think the window of being really like a World Series contender, I think, is closing in Houston, and it's going to be up to this offseason to see if they can find a way to keep it open.
Absolutely.
I don't mean to cut you off, but I just wanted to say, I don't think the Astros are going to be able to keep all these guys. Like you said, I think Springer's probably going to have to hit the road. And I think the 2 guys that will stay is Bregman and Correa. Those will be the guys that are going to stay. Altuve's he's aging, and aging is not usually a good thing. But I think even though they will keep those 2 guys, but Astros still have a lot of good prospects, a lot of guys that they could still call up and they could still make a difference. So I'm not entirely worried about the Astros. I still think they can make a playoff push this year. I still think they're going to be a playoff team. They're going to be playing in October, but I'm not really too concerned or really worried about them not contending this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Bregman's locked in for, I think, until 2024, 2025. Correa will be a free agent next year, so I'm sure they'll probably do what they need to do to lock him up. Springer is the question mark. Let's say if the offseason ended today or started today, excuse me, and Springer says I'm out. Where do you guys think he's gonna land? Boston?
Wow. So I don't think Boston. I think they I can never pronounce his name, but Chaim Bloom, their new GM, he's a guy from Tampa. I think he's gonna look at, hey, like, we need to do a lot on like our back end before we can even start competing. I don't necessarily think that's gonna be the best fit for him. Yeah, I kind of have to think of that. I could see maybe a team even like the Cardinals maybe kicking the tires on him.
Yeah.
I think it's a team that, they lost Zuna last year in free agency. I think they're right around 500 this year. I could see them looking at him as kind of like a big bat for that lineup.
I see a team like the San Francisco Giants going after them. I mean, Hunter Pence is getting older. They have Yastrzemski there. They may want to look into another guy to be able to show Yastrzemski the way. And who better than George Springer, a World Series champion and a guy that has such an amazing glove, has a great bat. And why not show the youngster how to play baseball the right way? I mean, Yastrzemski, he's already looking really solid on the field and hitting wise, but I see him wearing that orange and black, and I actually see him suiting it pretty well.
That's interesting. The San Francisco Giants.
The all of a sudden very competitive San Francisco Giants.
Yes.
This is the San Francisco Giants. Believe it or not, they're a team that believe are contenders this year. So they weren't even sellers during the trade deadline. This is a team that believes, hey, we're going to be that top 8 team that's going to make it to the playoffs. So, and they don't necessarily look bad. They actually are playing some pretty solid baseball. I mean, despite them losing today from that comfort behind win by the Colorado Rockies by newly acquired Kevin Pillar, but these Giants team still have it. I mean, Johnny Cueto looks like that shimmying pitcher from the Cincinnati Reds. He's still looking pretty good. He's still shimmying away, and he still looks really solid. So I'm not going to sleep on them. The Giants have always been a team that has been known for their starting rotation, and the Sticks still look really good.
Yeah, I mean that Giants team. I mean, they just put up 23 a couple nights ago, and all of a sudden, like, you forget that that's a team that's always been willing to spend money. That's a team that if they think that they're competitive, that they're going to go for it. And really, like, when you start looking at the National League, so we know that 2 teams from each division have to get in. But once you start looking at like who those 2 teams are going to be, you kind of start realizing that the National League is actually not that great this year. So, you look at the NL West. All right, you got the Dodgers and the Padres. All right, we'll lock those 2 in pretty comfortably. You look at the Central, the Cubs got off to that hot start, but, they've been a good team since then. They look like they'll probably make the playoffs at this point. But after that, Cardinals are in second at 500. You look at the NL East, you've got a really good team with the Braves that basically lost all their starting pitching besides Fried. And after that, is it going to be the Phillies? Like, they kind of seem like it seems that they should be the team to get there. They just don't seem like they're going to actually take it. Now, their bats have woken up and they've made a lot of good deadline moves to try and bolster that bullpen. But there's just something about that team where it's like, all right, so maybe the Phillies will kind of get there. All right, Cardinals are going to get there. Well, you still need 2 more wild card teams. And that's when you really start looking around. It's, the Nationals are having a terrible year.
Right.
Miami had that fun start, but now they're kind of playing like Miami. Milwaukee just seems to be moving in the wrong direction. Colorado started the year off on fire and have like won 2 games since. That you kind of start like looking, and it's like, you know what? Yeah, the Giants are actually probably just as good, if not better, than all these other teams. And more importantly, they're playing like a team that thinks they should be in the playoffs.
Oh, and absolutely. The Giants are a team that they've won championships being that wild card team. So it just takes the Giants to play some red hot September baseball, and they could be that underrated team that could just take a championship and be like that 3 championships in 5 years run. That was pretty insane and something you don't really hear too much about in baseball. But you know what, Steven? I actually like the Marlins. I would have been so cool and excited to see the Marlins are playing October baseball. That would have been so cool. Even the Cincinnati Reds as well. But I think it just ultimately comes down to this month. It's just who wants to win, who wants those 2 wild card spots, because that's what it's really going to come down to. I think the first 2 division spots are relatively taken, if you ask me. But those 2 wild card spots, this is what September baseball is all about. Whoever wants it is going to do everything that they need to do to get those 2 wild card spots.
And then anything can happen in October. We saw that last year.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
So right now, the Phillies are sitting in second place at 17 and 15, but the Marlins are right behind them at 16 and 16.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, even if you look at it, their last 10 games, Phillies 8-2, Miami 5-5.
Right.
I think this is a team that, okay, like that fun little ride was over. I think, and I think the Cardinals as well. I think there's almost been a little bit of a boost to the teams that had the coronavirus, because as bad as it was, and how terrible it is for anybody to have it, but you get a few days off, and if you're not sick and you're just kind of recovering, kind of like getting back into game mind, game shape, just getting healthy. I think you just have like such a leg up in those series immediately after. I'm kind of curious if that might have been benefiting Miami kind of early on this season.
I just want to say real quick, but I bet you all the Marlins fans are saying, "In Marte, we trust." So, I mean, I'm excited to see that lineup. Excited.
Yeah, I walk off home run on the first night. I love seeing teams go for it. And just because I don't necessarily think it's this year for them, I still absolutely love like a front office that's willing to say, hey, like let's go see if we can get into October. Let's see if we can make some noise.
Oh, absolutely. That's what makes baseball great. The teams that go out and spend the money and try because they want to compete. And, that's what makes October great. That's what makes September great. It's exciting, especially coming down to this end of the wire with these last 24, 25 games that are left in the season. So to me, exciting to see what each team does and who ends up in October and who doesn't. So, Alex, real quick, I want to touch on this real quick. The Angels. Now, they've been a team, they, locked up Mike Trout for, the next, 20 years or something like that?
Yeah, it's close.
Pretty close. So, do you think the Angels, they really didn't do a whole lot in the way of the offseason? I mean, way of the trade deadline. I keep talking offseason, but I mean, you can talk about the offseason as well. Do you think they're actually holding Mike Trout back by not making any type of key trades or acquisitions or signings?
No, this is a player that the Angels are really looking forward to contending down the line. I really do believe with just a couple of signings of just pitching. I'm a big pitching guy because pitching really does win you ball games. If they can sign 2 aces in the offseason, I really do think that they can win it. The Angels have a really solid squad. When you look at Shohei Ohtani as a hitter, Mike Trout, Albert Pujols right now, Justin Upton, you have David Fletcher, and you have Anthony Rendon. That already looks pretty solid and looks really solid on paper. And I'm really happy the Angels didn't trade away David Fletcher because this is a guy with a great glove. He is just a walking web gem here and there. That guy can hit for average. He's not a guy that's going to hit the ball over the fence, but he's a guy that's going to get on base. He's a guy that's going to steal you a couple bases. So I think you have to keep Mike Trout. I get it. The Angels are not contending. And all of baseball, we're all disappointed to see Mike Trout. He's not in a contending team. This is a player that deserves to be in a winner. He needs to be in a championship team. But I really do think the Angels are not that far away from being up there with the A's and with the Astros. It just takes a couple of solid signings of an ace or two. It's just going to take to see who's out there in this offseason as a free agent. Even in the winter meetings, you never know what can come up as for trades. I mean, they did get some prospects throughout these trades of Jason Castro and also trading away, I'm blanking out a name, Tommy La Stella, which I believe they fell short on in that trade, but they did get some pretty good back. And also Ryan Goodwin going to the Cincinnati Reds and getting Packy Naughton. Packy Naughton is going to be a great piece for that future starting rotation for the Angels. So just takes some pitching moves for the Angels, and I think they'll be up there.
So I'll go in a little bit of a different direction. So this will be my second pump the brakes moment. I think what the Angels front office has done is borderline criminal for just depriving baseball playoff Mike Trout. Mm-hmm. To me, this is an ownership group, a GM that is so focused on the shiny new toy that they have completely forgotten that the way that you build teams is by through the draft, through acquisitions in terms of young players, build up the minor leagues, build that base, build that core, and then supplement with good MLB ready talent. I look at this team as they've ignored pitching for so long, and instead they just keep trying to throw money at every single problem that they face. And until that they're really able to address it with those young guys, that unfortunately I'm so nervous that any good young player that's in LA, they'll trade at next year's trade deadline or off season for somebody else. So for Alex, I'll kind of go back, like, look at this Dodgers team. They have a star in Cody Bellinger, came up from the minors. Well before him, Clayton Kershaw came up from the minors. Max Muncy was a minor leaguer, I believe, in LA. Then, all right, we're a good team. We're World Series ready. Let's go out and get our Mookie Betts. Let's get that guy to bring us over the top. Where I always look at the Angels and it's, all right, we threw a ton of money at Albert Pujols and CJ Wilson. Neither worked out, and one, unfortunately, is still under contract. You get Trout, get the best player in the world, and then you spend a ton of money for Justin Upton. You pay $20 million for Shohei Ohtani thinking he's going to be your answer. You throw a ton of money at Anthony Rendon, who I absolutely love, but that Rendon's contract is going to be, that's going to be a lot of money going to a very old player here in only a few years. That I am very nervous to say this, but we might not see Mike Trout in the playoffs in the next 5 years.
Wow.
And that terrifies me.
I see Angels Dodgers, two very different organizations. Dodgers, that's an organization that is never really willing to trade away their top prospects. I mean, look at Seager, Bellinger, Buehler, Urias. You see all these guys that came from the Dodgers farm system. Yeah, you see all these guys. The Dodgers, the reason why sometimes they don't pull the trigger on some of these moves in previous trade deadlines and off seasons is because the Dodgers are a firm believer in their farm system. Angels don't have that farm system that they can really rely on to be able to call up big guys. So what do? They have to turn to the free agency market and see, hey, let's go ahead and sign the biggest free agent that's out there, and we're going to have him be our player. Hey, this is our guy. We signed Anthony Rendon. We'll be good for the year. That's not how baseball works. Great organizations win when you have excellent farm systems. Look at the Yankees. The Yankees, after they won you could correct if I'm wrong, Steven, but in 2009, was that the last time the Yankees won it, or was it 2008? It was 2009, right?
Yep. Yeah, 2009.
2009, when the Yankees won it, and you notice there was, after a couple of years, Yankees started going downhill because they started to go into reconstruction mode, started to trade away some guys, let their farm system work through. They even when they trade away these guys, they got some great pieces. Look at their shortstop. Gleyber Torres is one heck of a shortstop, one heck of a guy. And that's what the Yankees did. Look at the Astros. Look at the Cubs. You look at all these teams. What do they all have in common? They have systems, which is what the Angels struggle with so much. They don't have a farm system. They don't have guys that they can really turn to. That it just has to be a really good free agency market, and that's where they fall down. They have to. Maybe you got to trade away guys like Fletcher and trade away guys to start all over and get that farm system going again.
Oh, absolutely agree. So, as a Yankee fan, I'd always hear growing up, it's like, oh, well, the Yankees buy all their players, which one was absolutely ridiculous because every athlete is getting paid money. So everybody's buying everybody. But everyone was always like, oh, the Yankees, they just buy all their players. They buy their championships. And it's like, but look at the run, really 98, 99, 2000, so they're a three-peat, they're dynasty, 96 will add in there. And the main guys were catcher Jorge Posada from the farm system. Mm-hmm. You had Derek Jeter at short through the farm system. Bernie Williams was the main guy in the outfield farm system. Starting rotation, Andy Pettitte, farm system. Mariano Rivera, farm system. Now, granted, they supplemented with some good players, but even those players back then, yeah, they were good, but they weren't necessarily the great all-stars. Now, Roger Clemens was, and unfortunately, we kind of had the steroid tie. David Cohn was a really good pitcher. Borderline Hall of Fame guy. I think he should have gotten some more consideration, but it wasn't necessarily that they backed up, a ton of money for him, even though they did pay a good amount for him at the time. But then it's like you're looking, it's like, all right, Paul O'Neill. Paul O'Neill was a good player, but nobody was paying Paul O'Neill, Ken Griffey Jr. money. My personal favorite was Chuck Knobloch. Good player. He had won a Rookie of the Year, but again, like not a guy that you were lining up, the money truck again. That this was a team that they said, this is our core nucleus that all came up together through the farm system. They played together. They knew each other. we have them on like good, like cheap rookie contracts that we can spend a little bit more and supplement at all these other positions. And now you just keep going like team by team, World Series by World Series. And it's kind of the same thing. So, we'll continue to always look at the 2017 Astros.
Right.
Jose Altuve was a farm system guy. Alex Bregman, granted he was kind of younger guy back then, but Bregman, farm system guy. Springer, farm system guy. Now they made their big push. They won out. They got Verlander to kind of push them over the top. And then, Cole and Greinke in the years that followed. But that team was really built. Hey, these are our Astros players. Now let's pick those one or two extra guys to help us get there. And it's kind of the same thing that we're seeing out in LA with these Dodgers teams. This is a whole nucleus-based team. Yeah, okay, they went out and got Mookie Betts, and then they gave him more money than just about anybody else has ever gotten. But again, Mookie Betts isn't like the core player of that team. Now, he will be going forward. But again, it was Seager, it was Bellinger, it was Muncy, it's Kershaw, it's May, it's Bueller. It's all of these great players that all came up from the Dodgers system. The Red Sox in recent years had this like new run of killer bees again with Betts, Bogarts, Bradley Jr. That like you're seeing when teams win championships, it's actually usually not the team that's spending on all these free agents. Actually, I would say 2009 Yankees were an exception to that when they went out and got CC Burnett and Teixeira, and Kevin Cash because he was there in 2009. But for the most part, these teams, it's all about homegrown talent. And that's, I think more teams kind of need to sit back and say, okay, like how are we going to build internally? And then just add in those cool little extra features.
Oh, absolutely. I think the Astros are kind of the example, especially in the early 2010s, when they basically gutted their entire organization, 3 back-to-back seasons of losing 100 games or more. And then they started to build up their farm system, and they were able to, they signed, Bregman he was a first-round pick, Correa, first-round pick. I think Springer was a first-round pick as well. Guys, Altuve, he wasn't a first-round pick or anything like that, but he, I'm going to call him the walk-on, how he went from, hey, I want to play baseball to where he is, now in the big leagues. But, sometimes you have to tear down the organization. Some fans don't like that. They want to see their team compete every year. But unfortunately, money gets in the way of that process.
Yeah, and I mean, absolutely. So as a Yankee fan, there was obviously no way that Derek Jeter was ever going to not play in New York. But Derek Jeter's last 5 years, he was probably more of a liability than he was an asset. And those Yankee teams in his last 5 years weren't very good. They frequently would miss the playoffs. They were like 84 wins, I think was the low point. But every day, Derek Jeter's going out there to play shortstop. And as a Yankee fan, yeah, I want Derek Jeter to be my shortstop. But in terms of like actually winning, probably not the right guy.
That was the time when the Yankees they started to go on their tear. They started tearing down their team. They started to look for some top prospects, trade away guys. And you really do have to rely on drafting really good quality guys, and your farm system, those guys that you're bringing up through the minors can be keys to your success, which is why sometimes trading away these top guys aren't the best of ideas. I mean, again, going back to the Padres trade deadline moves, yes, they trade away a lot of guys, but at the end of it, they didn't trade away the top 10 guys that they have right now, which is about the smartest thing that the Padres can do. Hold on to these top guys that will keep the Padres in for runs for years to come. And these young prospects will guarantee these organizations to having future contentions, which is why you have to start concerning about the Orioles, about the Marlins, about teams that haven't contended in quite some time. You have to expect these teams to sometime in a couple of years, they're going to contend because of all these players that they've been drafting, getting high draft picks, getting these prospects that they've traded away. And you do see the Orioles, and the Orioles are actually playing some pretty decent baseball right now. So you have to start thinking about those other teams.
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. One of those teams that I would like to see get in there in the postseason is the Seattle Mariners. It's been so long since 2001, I think.
Yeah, with Ichiro's first year.
So that's a team that needs to get in there. That needs to get, every team has been in the World Series except the Seattle Mariners.
Yeah, they might now have the longest playoff drought of any team in like North American sports, of like the big four. Like I think they're the longest now postseason drought. I know it was the Bills, but they've made it now a couple times in the last 3 years.
Yeah,
and that's
so
it's another team. Like you look at the way that Seattle has always tried to be competitive. It was usually, hey, like let's kind of try and go sign that flashy player, bring them in. Where when you go back to those 90s Seattle team, and it was really good young talent. It was Ken Griffey Jr. was a farm system guy. A-Rod was a farm system guy. They got Randy Johnson in a trade, but he was still a young up-and-coming player at the time that, when you're looking at these teams that are going to be competitive, sorry, I can't leave out Edgar Martinez. He was one of my favorites growing up, but got to throw him in there. But when you look at these teams that always find ways to be competitive, it's that young homegrown talent.
Yep, absolutely.
And you really do think about the Mariners, and that's when they would make moves like that big signing for Robinson Cano. I think the world is scratching their head on that one. Like, really? You're going to the Mariners? Just because the Mariners offered him the greens. And I think a lot of Yankee fans are disappointed in losing Robinson Cano. He's such a good player, and especially as a Yankee. And even the Nelson Cruz signing, if you guys remember that one too, it was just one of those, whoa, wait, okay, Mariners are a team that you could take serious. And then you look at them going to the season, and no, because sometimes these free agent signings don't exactly fall through how you want. So if you can't rely on the signings, you can always rely on your young talent, because those are guys that are always trying to play well, play every out, play every at bat, because they want to stay in the major leagues. And these are guys that you can guarantee that they're going to give their heart out every single day. Whereas these free agent signings, these guys, they know they're going to play every day. They got paid already. They're going to stay in the lineup every day. And young guys, they're going to do anything they have to do just to stay in the order.
Well, and I definitely see it too from like in terms of like a management perspective, that it's especially in professional sports, you always see the issue of I am paying you for what you've accomplished, not for what you will accomplish. Right. So I'm going to give Robinson Cano this huge record-breaking contract for Seattle. I still think it's their biggest contract that they've ever offered, and I can't think of anybody else there now that would have broken that. And it's, well, did you pay him for what his 7 years in Seattle were going to look like? Or did you pay him for what his 10 years in New York looked like? And they paid him for what he was in New York.
Right.
And, when he's 32, 33, 34, 35, well, he's not that player anymore. He's not, the young, hungry kid that's trying to make it. It's, the old veteran that's already won a World Series, that's got the big contract. And it kind of also reminds me of in business, there's a term called the Peter principle, which is you keep promoting people until they're bad at their job, that you promoted them too high. And, we've got a way of doing that in professional sports. We keep throwing more and more money at players until they're actually not worth that contract. And it's all of a sudden, it's like you'll get a guy that for years could have been underrated, and now you gave him a huge deal, and now all of a sudden he's overrated. Well, he was probably the same player. Maybe he's a little bit older and has kind of regressed a little bit. The only thing that's different is, well, the expectations have changed.
Absolutely.
Right. Which is why now when Mike Trout signed that big contract, which was the biggest contract in baseball history, and then Mookie Betts got that big deal too, now I'm starting to think, okay, now players are going to think that they can get contracts like this. And it's like, no, wait a minute now. Are you a Mike Trout? Do you have Mike Trout numbers? Can you do what Mike Trout does? Can you do what a Mookie Betts does? Can you do those things? And I think that's what the game is going to now. These contracts are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. At some point, it was like when Kershaw got his deal, like I remember Felix Hernandez had a big deal and Kershaw had a big deal. Greinke had a big deal. There were some guys that were just trying to one-up each other when it came down to these contract deals and such. But now with Mike Trout signing that big one and Mookie Betts, I just don't want players to think that they can get contracts like that unless if you really have proven yourself worthy in the league and you are a player that is worthy of making that money, then yes, okay, we will sign you to maybe a deal like that. But you can't just say, oh, I want that money if you're not showing it out on the field.
Yeah, and you look at even a guy like Mike Trout. Now, I adore Mike Trout. best baseball player that I'll most likely ever watch in my lifetime. Mike Trout's having debatably the worst season of his career right now. He's hitting like 270. His on-base percentage is, I think, at a career low. That all of a sudden, you start looking, it's like, all right, you're going to have him for the next 10 years.
Right.
If he's not Mike Trout of last year, of 2 years ago, and if he's already kind of taken like maybe that half step down, that's going to be a very, very just bad contract. It's going to stop them from being able to go out and get other young talent. Yeah, I mean, that deal scares me for Mike Trout because I don't think the Angels are a good enough team to get in the playoffs in the next 5 years. And that contract scares me as if I'm an Angels organization or an Angels fan, because I don't think we're good enough to get in the playoffs the next 5 years. And I think his contract will keep us from getting to the playoffs afterwards.
Oh, absolutely. And that's, I have to agree. I don't like these big mega contracts because like you said, you're paying for, last year's numbers when, you don't know what's going to happen 5 years from now, barring, injuries or, whatever the case may be, there's going to be a decline in the future, and you're not going to get $32 million, Mike Trout in, 2025.
Yeah.
It's, I think Trevor Bauer is onto something with 1-year contracts and, just continuing to just play baseball and focus on trying to be the best that you can be. Maybe sign 2 or 3 year contracts just to kind of, earn some money while you can before you can't make it anymore.
Well, and I think we're going to have a very interesting situation coming up with the Yankees where Aaron Judge is going to come up for a contract here in the next few years. And, you're going to have to sit there and say, this is a guy that can't really play full seasons. This is a guy that gets hurt way too often. That, if I'm Judge, well, what if I took a 4-year contract at a ton of money? And then afterwards kind of know, like at 33, I'm not going to get another big contract, that I want to maximize my value in the short term. And then in the long term, we'll kind of stay with the team at, $15 million a year, which is it's absurd to think $15 million a year. And that's not a big contract, but weirdly, it's not anymore. No. That I think we will potentially start seeing that where players are going to sign either really front loaded contracts or, just short contracts for a lot of money for a few years instead of a lot of money over a very long period of time, because I think at some point owners are going to kind of say like, we're not going to do this anymore.
I think with the whole Trevor Bauer situation, I hope he has a motorhome of some sort so he can be just 1 year just living in that motorhome for a year and then moving to a different state for another team if he's just going to be signing these 1-year wonders and such. But I actually like the 1 year type of deal. I mean, Trevor Bauer is a very smart, a very intelligent player. He is very smart and intelligent on the field as well. He is a pitcher of high caliber as well. But going back Aaron Judge situation, if you're the Yankees and you're looking at your player that's supposed to be your franchise player, I'm really concerned right now, because if this is a guy that's really hurting himself and is just not being able to stay on the field, I don't know if I want a future with this guy. I need somebody that's going to be taking the outfield on a regular basis. I mean, I know what Judge is capable of and all, but I need somebody that I can trust that will be healthy and play out there, which is why I like Clint Frazier for you guys. I wouldn't want to see him anywhere else. I think the pinstripes looks good on the guy. So I think Clint Frazier is the future of the Yankees. So I think if you're Aaron Judge, I think you should be rushing, trying to get back onto the field, because this young guy can end up taking your spot. Judge will tell Boone, "Hey, coach, I'm ready to go." He's like, "Okay, go ahead and sit down." Like, "Oh, I'm not going in the lineup?" "No, Frazier's already out there. He's gonna be taking your spot right there in right field." So I know if any Yankee fans are listening right now, they probably think I'm crazy right now. But if I'm Judge, I am trying to rush my healing process and try to get back to the field and stay healthy.
Well, and the issue with the Yankees right now is, Judge isn't going to be a long-term outfielder, and you're already paying Stan a lot of money to be a full-time DH. Oh, and Gary Sanchez can't catch. At
that
some
guy's
point,
bad behind the dish. You cannot
at
call a
some
good game.
point, you've created a team of guys that are all DHs, and there's only one DH spot. So, like at some point, I mean, the Yankees are just going to have a logjam, and nobody else is going to take Stanton's contract.
No.
So, and granted, like when healthy, Stanton's a great baseball player, but that's unfortunately a pretty big if. I look at the Yankees and I really don't know how you justify giving Aaron Judge a big contract, and somebody will, because he's good enough when healthy that, I think 2 years from now we might see Judge in a different uniform.
I'm not going to even doubt that at all. Yeah. Won't doubt it.
I'll probably be Arizona, and they'll still be bad.
Oh man.
Man.
Oh wow. Well, we'll see what happens. I think this season in general is one for the ages. I think we can all agree on that. So I want to wrap up with this. This conversation, we can keep this going for hours probably. So I want to wrap this up with this. What is y'all's overall assessment of how this season has progressed so far?
For me, it's been a fun season. I was so nervous about seeing the fighting between the players and the owners. I was so nervous with the coronavirus, but it's all of a sudden it's September, and I kind of feel like I had a somewhat normal summer because I got to watch and listen to baseball again. The expanded playoffs, the 60 games, it's not things that I want to continue going forward, but it's been made for a really fun season. And at the end of the day, we're going to have a World Series champ, and I'm going to always call them the World Series champ. This is a legitimate year. This is legitimate baseball, and I'm having a blast watching it.
No doubt there, Steven. This is, whoever wins the World Series, it's a well-earned World Series. No one says, hey, you didn't win it fair and square because you didn't play 162. You played 60. Do you know how much harder that is? Well, I created an episode for Sideline Sports Podcast with a former teammate of mine, and he was even saying, hey, whoever wins this, it's well worth it. When you looked at the release of the schedule, I got all of these minor league baseball vibes from the schedule. It's 17 straight games. If you're a manager, that's going to be a scary stretch. And also, depending on who you're playing, you really do have to be top notch in your managerial skills. So if you're a manager that went 500 in that 17 game stretch, you deserve to be a candidate for manager of the year, because managing in that many games straight, that's a tough one. Starting with just managing your pitching staff, that's hard. Even your position players, who needs a day off, who doesn't need a day off, who needs to go out there, and it's tough. It's not easy. And I actually like this whole entire season. At least we got to see some baseball. And once it was 4th of July, once I knew there was baseball going on, and once I heard that news, there's no baseball going on 4th of July, because I'm used to seeing that having 4th of July and baseball, like fireworks and such. But it was an abnormal 4th of July. But just knowing that baseball was coming back was a great feeling. And I tweeted this out before, and I have to say the trade deadline this year has been the best, top notch since in quite some time. I don't remember the last time there was a huge trade deadline like this. It's been amazing. People have been complaining about, I don't like this trade deadline. I don't like it. And yeah, there's a lot of risk going into the trade deadline, but just goes to show you there's a lot of teams willing to just play October baseball. When you look at teams like the Reds, who made some contending moves, Marlins made some contending moves trying to push forward, even the Rockies, they made that Kevin Pillar move, and that'll be something that the Rockies will try to use to help them be a contender down the line. But it's just going to be interesting. This month of September, it's September baseball, baby. People say it's all about October baseball. It's not. It is September baseball, because you get to see all these teams trying to push for that final 2 wild card spots. And National League usually looks interesting, but no, it's going to be both AL and NL trying to fight it out. So just keep your eyes out there, keep your eyes out, and try to look for those teams that don't usually make the playoffs to make the playoffs.
Well, and definitely, and that was, I mean, very well said. And like when you look at the deadline, yeah, this was so much fun. Like this was different. Teams actually made trades. It was, you're sitting there refreshing Twitter, and it's, oh my God, did you see who just was moved? And the one last point that I'll make tonight, but one, we got to recognize Cal Ripken Jr. just beat prostate cancer a couple weeks ago. But
Oh,
think
wow.
about Cal Ripken Jr. when today, how difficult it is for players to play in consecutive games. Cal Ripken Jr. played in like 2,000 consecutive games, just some absurd number that, like, as we get further and further away, doesn't even seem real. And played at a Hall of Fame level the entire time. I want more guys like Cal Ripken Jr., guys I can pencil in every day. Show me those guys. I want them to win a World Series.
No, absolutely. Well said. I don't think we're ever going to see another player beat Cal Ripken's record, honestly.
Nope.
Nobody's going to beat that.
No.
I don't know. Nobody will even come close at this point.
No.
So, Alex, at the beginning, we were talking about wearing the number 21. The Pittsburgh Pirates are going to honor Roberto Clemente, who wore number 21 on the field against the Chicago White Sox at PNC Park. And that's coming up on, it's Roberto Clemente Day and September 9th. So next week, all the Pittsburgh Pirates will wear number 21.
Oh, I love that. I mean, I know I wasn't around or anything when I did learn about the story when I was in elementary school about what he did, and when I was learning about baseball when I was little and I read up on it. I didn't know who he was. I wasn't even around at that time or anything. But when I read his story and I learned about it, I just thought, who is this guy? This guy doesn't resemble a baseball player to me. He seems more like a superhero. When I was little, I thought that was Superman. But for what he did for not just the game of baseball, but, off the field, helping out the people from his country, that is an amazing accomplishment. That is a true definition of a professional that is on and off the field. And now if you want to talk about his baseball career, wow, that guy had an amazing arm. That guy he's just a definition of a baseball player. When you look at that guy, his base running, that guy just ready to get down and dirty. I love Clemente, and for what he did in the big game of baseball. And that guy deserves to be an icon, not only for the city of Pittsburgh, but all throughout baseball. And he needs to be a role model for all Major League Baseball players, to not just give back to the fans of your team, but to give back to everybody, the less unfortunate, and use him as an example of how to live your life on a daily basis. How can I help out a less unfortunate person? And that's what he did. And you know what? I'm all for it. I want to watch that. I want to see what the Pittsburgh Pirates do to honor Roberto Clemente. And I really do want to see that one day.
And let's get 21 out of baseball. Let's retire that. What you just look at what he did to bring the game, to bring Latin American players into Major League Baseball. Let's retire 21. I think that's a number that I think it deserves baseball's respect and baseball's honor. So
absolutely,
I can second that as well. I mean, I like using the number 21, but I'm willing to hang it up in the closet and not use the number 21 just out of respect for Roberto Clemente. So, I mean, I like that. I really do like that idea, like the number 42.
Absolutely. Something we can push for Major League Baseball to do.
Hey, maybe a certain organization can push that forward. Maybe MLBFA can do something about that.
Absolutely. That's something that we would love to take on. We would love to rally fans behind Clemente and let baseball know, like, hey, like, let's honor this guy at the highest level that we can. One, we mentioned that he was an incredible baseball player. Two, he brought Hispanic baseball players into the game of baseball. And then three, he died on a mission after a disaster in Central America that, this is a guy that, we need to be teaching to kids, that we need to be respecting at all levels, because he deserves it. And, if we had more Roberto Clementes in 2020, this world would be a much better place.
Absolutely. Definitely. I completely agree. I think He was the best at everything. He was a great human being, especially for his organizations and that what he did for his community, but also for baseball as well. And something Major League Baseball needs to bring to light, to educate people about Roberto Clemente and have a ceremony where they retire his number, and that way he can get the respect that he deserves.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely have to second that. This isn't any ordinary baseball player that you're going to get every day. He's like Steven said, a once in a lifetime player, and he's definitely still remembered to this day. And I love the fact that there's players out there that really do try to be like him off the field, which is why, talking about the Dodgers too, Kershaw, Turner, they have their organizations always looking to give back to their communities. And that's why they have the Roberto Clemente Award. And I really do like that about the league, that they even created an award after such an amazing player.
Absolutely. Well, guys, I appreciate you guys coming on, talking baseball. This has been great. Like I said, I think we can keep this conversation going for hours, honestly. I really do.
Yeah.
But I truly appreciate you guys coming on. Alex, where can everybody find you at?
So you guys can find me in almost every social media platform. Facebook, just look up my name, Alex Naveja, right here in the screen, right there.
There you go.
Just look for me up there on Facebook, Instagram. You guys can follow my professionals page. It's just the same thing right here, Alex Naveja Sports. And then on Twitter, it's just Alex J Naveja. And all my platforms, I'm always promoting Sideline Sports Podcast. From there, I am on YouTube. It's the word Sideline Sports Podcast. And you guys, if you guys wouldn't mind hitting the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. We are 8 subscribers now away from 200 subscribers. So we're just growing from there. And we are coming out with an episode tomorrow. I just released who we're going to have tomorrow for the Lakers and for the Clippers. So there's a lot going on in SoCal sports right now, a lot to cover. I had to do something with the trade deadline because of everything going on. And then now with Lakers and Clippers in the playoffs, a lot of bickering going on right now with Lakers and Clippers fans saying, oh, Lakers going to be this year. No, Clippers are going to be this year. So it's absolutely, it's so fun over here in SoCal. So I appreciate you having me on the show this week, and just thank you so much to everybody and giving me this opportunity.
Absolutely. Steven, where can we find you at?
Yep, definitely. So we are the Major League Baseball Fan Association, at MLBFA01 on Twitter, at MLB_FA on Instagram. Come join us, check us out. If you're passionate about baseball and you want to get fans a seat at the table with the owners and with the players, that's what we're trying to accomplish, and we'd love to have you on board. Again, it's always a blast to be on this podcast. And really just thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You guys are welcome to come on the show anytime. Just say the word and we'll do this again. We'll do this again for sure. So I appreciate you guys taking the time to come on with me tonight.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. And Sideline Sports Podcast, you have a spot there as well. So we'll look forward to having you on soon too.
Excellent. Let's do it sometime. It'd be awesome.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of the Rip Griffith Show. Be sure to check out the episode on all of the major podcast platforms, Apple, Google, and Spotify. If you missed this live broadcast, you can go to my YouTube channel and watch it in its entirety. Hit the subscribe button, and we'll talk to you guys soon.